In this video, I am joined by a special panel. We got Jalen, the Family Man 23, talking all about May the 4th coming to Disney parks. I know we're a little early, but you know what? It's basically Star Wars month, right? So let's dive right in. We're talking all Star Wars, Disney parks up next on OG 55. Welcome aboard to another episode of OG 55. Like I said, I'm joined by a fantastic panel. We're talking all about May the 4th for coming to the Disney parks. I'm going to start off down below with Mr. Jalen. Jalen, if you could let everybody home know where they could find you on social media, my friend.
Right now, I am currently active on Twitter, Theme Park EXP 626, as you can see right there. I'm really active in there. I've had times where I've kind of fell off, but I'm back. I'm back, and I'm back better than ever. So
Perfect. It's good to have you on, Jalen. Thank you so much for coming on and talking shop with us, man.
Yes, sir. I'm glad to be on here.
Absolutely. We got the Family Man 23. Welcome back, George. If you let everybody home know where they can find you on social media, sir.
Absolutely. You could find me on my YouTube channel, Disney Family Man 23. As I had mentioned to you folks, please be patient. New content is on the rise with that channel. It's a complete reset, so definitely check out that. You can interact with me on Twitter at Disney George. You can find me on the podcast called A Walk with Walt. And of course, you'll find me here on my home base with Orange Grove 55 with Citrus Corner with all that sweet, juicy news. Wait, I just messed it up. Oh my gosh, the one time I messed it up with all that sweet, juicy, but sometimes sticky Disney news and info. I do apologize there, folks.
You're all good, George. You're all good. Hey, we'll give you a pass. You probably with all the cough medicine and stuff,
Of course, yeah, little delirious.
So let's dive right in. So Disney has announced some stuff for May the 4th to celebrate May the 4th. And I wanted to kind of talk to you guys about this because we're getting Hyperspace Mountain back, right? And then they announced a bunch of these, kind of like these foods and what have you, coming to celebrate May the 4th. Jalen, I'm going to start with you. What are your thoughts on typically for Disneyland Resort, when it comes to this May the 4th stuff, with Hyperspace Mountain and all the various desserts and food options? Do you like this, or do you think they're kind of the options, the offerings for May the 4th are kind of lackluster? Kind of where do you stand on this, Jalen?
I think so. I've had a few different opinions about this growing with the whole Star Wars celebrations. And at first I was like, it's just starting to take over too much of Disneyland. Especially with Galaxy's Edge openings, well, now they have everything centered, that's the epic center for Star Wars. Let that all be there. And, very minimal Star Wars everywhere else. But then as I matured more, I was like, I think this is a good thing. I think this is a great idea to celebrate Star Wars because it's been a huge almost anyone you can ask knows what Star Wars is, and the impact Star Wars has had on their life is probably going to be huge. And that franchise has done so much for Disney, and so anything that Star Wars can bring to the parks, I wouldn't even hesitate, seconding and being right behind it. So the fact that we have Hyperspace Mountain, a whole entire overlay, almost like a new attraction. That's a huge thing, and I love it. Every time it debuts or comes back for the celebration, I'm always ready to get on it. And as far as the treats, I'm not a huge fan of chocolate, but the other treats that they offer, I've always, that's one of the first things that I get when I do make it to the parks. So
awesome, man, awesome. So have you personally for the movies and what have you, Jalen? Have you been a fan of Star Wars, or do you care about the franchise at all, really, or not your cup of tea, or where do you stand on that?
Yeah, so I'm a huge fan of the Star Wars franchise. It took me a while to truly understand it because I thought A New Hope was part one, and going forward from there, I thought I'm younger, I didn't understand how it worked. And so then obviously when I became in my teenage years, I understood how the series works, and then I understood I was able to follow the story more. I was like, man, this is amazing. Like, can we get like endless stories? I kind of fell off on the Clone Wars. That kind of like lost me a little bit. But once it got back to the main storyline, that's when I really got back to it. And like, The Mandalorian, I consider probably one of my favorite shows ever.
Nice.
And that's like Star Wars lore all around. So that's how I stand.
Absolutely. So you grew up, if I'm not mistaken, like the prequels was like your generation, right? Is that pretty much
Exactly. Yep.
okay? Cool. Cool. George, what are your thoughts, man? Hyperspace Mountain, the Darth Vader parfait, whatever it is. This kind of stuff. Does it excite you? Not so much? Is it kind of lackluster?
Well, I'm like on the middle grounds with this. There's certain aspects of it that I do enjoy. I've been on Hyperspace Mountain more than actually Space Mountain every time I come out to Disneyland. I guess it's just how the correlation of timing goes with like when I could schedule my trips. So I've actually been on Hyperspace Mountain more. I do like that aspect of how they could take a classic attraction, as Jalen had mentioned, and completely transform it into something completely different. And it fits kind of well with it, surprisingly. With like the specialty snacks or beverages or what have you, I couldn't even tell you whether or not it was in the parks or not. It's not really my cup of tea. I don't really like go looking forward to this stuff. But if something happens, just catch my eye while I'm there. I might give something a go. My only negative aspect of it is that to celebrate for Star Wars, I get it that they're including in it within the Disney parks, but when you have a dedicated land specifically for Star Wars, but you're not doing anything with that, and you're placing it everywhere else, that's where my frustration is. Where I don't mind them having it throughout the park, but have like a one big kind of like block party bash at Galaxy's Edge, pump some life into that land, because there's like nothing there. Like and I know we'll probably talk about it, a little bit later, but like how Disney used to do the Star Wars weekends, even if they did like a variation of that within Galaxy's Edge, maybe get some bands playing, bring the old nostalgia characters out, mix them in with the newer generation characters. It doesn't matter. It's Star Wars Day. You're celebrating all aspects of it. So whether or not that they want to keep a storyline going for May 4th, it shouldn't matter.
Yeah, no, I agree with you on that, George. And we've talked a lot on this channel about the frustration with Galaxy's Edge and that timeline. And we're starting to see some cracks in that timeline, though. Like, Jalen, your favorite Mando, Mando is there now. Boba Fett was seen there. Fennec and all that. So there are cracks showing. It shows there's a willingness by Disney to sort of break away from it. But I think they just need to go full bore and just put it all in there. You have a 14, 15 acre land dedicated to this franchise. Utilize it to its full potential. It's cooler. I mean, I don't mind so much like here and there stuff like, in Tomorrowland, but when you don't really utilize it at all over there in the brand new land, and it's all in Tomorrowland, basically, it's a little strange, it's pretty weird. But
and not to mention too, I'm sure we'll talk about this later too, but on the Star Tours, one of the destinations, or most of the destinations, when you land in Batuu. So none of that even makes sense anyways. You land in Batuu, and when you exit the attraction, you're in Tomorrowland. So that's just one of the few things like, okay, so not only do you have a very strict timeline in this Galaxy's Edge, but now the stuff that the other Star Wars pieces that you have in the other part of the park, it doesn't even connect. So I don't know.
And I agree with you with that, because what's even stranger, if you go on Star Tours at Hollywood Studios and you land in Batuu and you exit out, you end up in Echo Lake. So explain that one. It's like...
It's crazy, right? It's absolutely well, that's one of the things that's always bothered me, because like I kind of have a little bit of OCD, and to have this whole area dedicated to Star Wars and then this one attraction, a Star Wars attraction in Tomorrowland, it never really made a lot of sense. When they announced Batuu, like I think it was like in 2015, I thought, oh, Star Wars is dead attraction walking, basically. That they're going to get rid of that. you know?
Mhm.
And that actually is a perfect segue, actually, because Jalen, you had a great idea, like to talk about these new destinations for Star Tours that was announced over at Star Wars Celebration a few weeks ago. But they didn't give us any detail. They said they're going to be new planets, and they're going to add it to Star Tours. But Jalen, I'm going to start with you. What do you think this means for Star Tours, right? Like we're talking about how it's kind of weird that they have this in Tomorrowland, separate from Galaxy's Edge. Now they're announcing more planets, so they're still investing into this attraction. Do you think this thing is sticking around for a long time, or what's going on?
It's the obvious, from evidence is that it may be around for another at least. If the new destinations aren't debuting until next year sometime, then that gives like another at least I think 2 to 3 years after that for that to really like make a impact or whatever, however they look at it. I do think that what frustrates me is that we've waited for a new Tomorrowland restructure for I don't know how long. So you would think that with a lot of people have been talking about it within the last year or so. So you would think that you would assume that Disney is aware of this, and you would assume that they are working on it or some type of reconstruction of Tomorrowland. But what bothers me is that because they announced new destinations for Star Tours and how going from that, it'd probably be at least another 2 years or so before they think about any other plans. Now that means that whatever Tomorrowland plans that they have either involve Star Tours within that plan, or it's so grand and dynamic that it's gonna take longer than what we expected. And that frustrates me because we've already waited long enough,
Right.
and things are starting to become old now. And I think me and a lot of people would think that Tomorrowland it's ready to get the facelift that it's been needing. So
That's
Yeah.
actually a really good aspect of it because that goes the same for Hollywood Studios. They have that whole entire section over there between Star Tours and the Indiana Jones Epic Stunt Spectacular, and that whole real estate area could become something completely new and different. But now that you mention that, being that Star Tours is sticking around, then again, another piece of land that's not going to be utilized for however long it's supposed to be.
Right,
right.
right. Yeah, this definitely signals, like you said, Jalen, a delay in any kind of new Tomorrowland. I mean, I guess like you said, they could incorporate it, but I don't know. I mean, and it's kind of weird because this is an attraction. This is like a 30-plus-year-old attraction. I mean, and we've kind of moved beyond. Like the simulator technology now is so much more advanced than what we kind of see in Star Tours. I think like they can do so much more. Even the Falcon ride, it's interactive and it's right. It just seems weird to me that they're keeping this thing around. I guess they want to have it around so they can use it as like a marketing tool. I'm sure these new planets are going to like market. Maybe they'll be tied to like, I don't know, like the Ahsoka show or what have you. But it's bizarre. It really is bizarre.
And here's another thing: is Disney should be investigated because who's sitting in these Imagineering meetings or whoever these Bob Iger meetings and is like, okay, let's talk about Star Tours. Let's keep it alive and let's make new destinations or create new destinations. Like, how are we agreeing on this? Like,
exactly, it should be us. Give me 1 hour in that conference room. 1 hour, I could change the whole entire aspect.
Exactly. Like, I don't think you can get a group of ticket holders, pass holders, whatever, and they'll sit there and say, yeah, let's keep Star Tours. Let's continue this adventure, I guess, per se. Like, it doesn't make sense at all.
Now, oh, sorry, OG, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just saying, like, literally, you guys are right. Like, you hit the nail on the head. Like, nobody's asking for any more adventures from Star Tours. And actually, Star Tours itself is kind of they lost me when they got rid of Captain Rex. I'm a huge Captain Rex fan. Yeah. I love me some Captain Rex, and when they got rid of him and they moved him over to Galaxy's Edge, I'm like, all right, cool. Star Tours is totally expendable now because they removed my favorite thing. Go ahead, George.
Yeah.
I was just gonna say, I'm okay with Star Tours. I basically use that as a filler attraction. Like if there's nothing else going on, or I just need something to do to
Sure.
Then it's like, oh, Star Tours, 15 minutes. I'll jump in line, but it's, I mean, if Vash was here, he'd probably have my head for saying this because we all know how Mr. Vash Sky, he sees Star Tours like as, which it is a nostalgia piece of Disney history in the parks, which obviously, yes, it is. But I feel like that they're not adding, this is where he's probably going to have my head for it, that I don't feel like they're adding new adventures for Star Tours because of Star Tours. I feel like that they're doing that to kind of stall some time, really, because they still don't know really what they're doing with Galaxy's Edge. So it's like, okay, let's put something in a little bit simple. Let's band-aid it, if you will, until we can still figure out. And it's like they have so much work that needs to be done in Galaxy's Edge. They really shouldn't even be focused on Star Tours.
It's bizarre. You have this mega hit with The Mandalorian and Grogu. Like the biggest thing. Like that show has really eclipsed like the sequel trilogy by a mile. Like that show became a total worldwide phenomenon. Grogu is massive. You have a great franchise there. Why don't you expand, Galaxy's Edge and build like Jon Favreau. Jon Favreau even said in an interview like a couple months ago that he would love to build like a Razor Crest attraction at Disney parks. Take them up on the offer, Disney. Come on, build us a Razor Crest attraction in Galaxy's Edge and make it grand. I'm talking like Rise of the Resistance or at least something substantial, like a D or an E ticket. That would be amazing. It would be hugely popular. Look at the lines, look at the crowds that Mando and Grogu get at the parks when they walk around.
And I could another thing. Oh, go ahead.
Okay. No, really quick. I was just going to say, I could imagine what Galaxy's Edge would be like if they already had Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni on board, before like all the, like with Disney Plus and what have you, if they were part of that original team of what it would become. Because I mean, I love Rise of the Resistance. Smuggler's Run, it's okay. But, but all the more oomph that they would bring that land, it's frustrating.
Yeah. Go ahead, Jalen.
Go ahead, Jalen.
I was just gonna say that if we really think about it, if we're being honest with ourselves, if Star Tours had any other IP attached to it besides the Star Wars IP, it wouldn't have the discussion that it's having now. Because I only say that because we brought up like it is a nostalgic Disney attraction, like the type of attraction it is. It'd be tough to see it go. But if it was like any other type of IP, I personally wouldn't feel so bad, concerned about it. It's because it's a Star Wars IP and they just debuted a $1 billion investment in their own Star Wars land, and it's because also that it's pretty much an outdated ride system that all those play a factor into why like none of it makes sense why it's there now, and none of it makes sense why they're even thinking about furthering the existence of the attraction. And like how George is saying, it's probably only because they need to stall time to figure out whatever other plans they need to do.
Yeah, no, 100%. It's a stall, a tactic, and I think there is a marketing element here too, in terms of like promoting the new stuff, like maybe like a show or something. They can incorporate the new planet, new destination into some new thing. But I think I'm ready to move on from Star Tours. I really am. I'm ready for something new in there, and I don't know. Like, what do you guys think? Like, why? Jalen, why do you think, in your opinion, like, why do you think Disney is so hesitant to like really divorce themselves from this timeline in Galaxy's Edge? What's holding them back? Is it Lucasfilm? Is it Imagineering? What's going on over there?
See, that's kind of like a tricky question because you want to say it's Imagineering because realistically they're the ones that are putting the pen to paper and creating these things, creating these ideas, and then it goes from there. But then again, Lucasfilm is what's being represented, so they're also in that same meeting, and they're like, well, we don't want this to be, we want this to be promoted. We want this to be promoted. That's probably how Galaxy's Edge happened. They had the big meeting with all the big people, and the Star Wars people, Lucasfilm, they wanted the newer films and productions to be represented in Galaxy's Edge, and they didn't want the older franchises and the older characters to be represented, because that's what's relevant now. What's relevant now is Kylo Ren and the First Order and Rey and the Resistance and things of that nature. That's what's relevant. That's what they'd rather promote. Darth Vader is not relevant, even though he's probably gonna gain you the most money. Yoda is
Yeah.
not relevant. C-3PO is not relevant. R2 is not. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's kind of like they want to leave those things in the past and focus on what's relevant. But at the same time, now you're in this pickle where you have this $1 billion investment in Galaxy's Edge, and you created such a strict timeline that these other properties that you have also in the same park, like it also, I feel like it'd be a little different too if Star Tours or Launch Bay was in California Adventure, because it's then you could talk about Astro Blasters and Buzz Lightyear being in Disneyland and California Adventure in on Midway Mania and things of that nature, to the same IP in two different parks. I feel like that's an easier thing to understand and comprehend. Whereas you have the same IP in the same park with two different timelines. So not only is it confusing, but it's like what are we doing here? Like it just I don't know. It none of it makes sense to me.
It's crazy. What do you think, George? What's holding Disney back from breaking this timeline with Galaxy's Edge and just going full bore, like just like
I think it's a lot of creative issues. I think more so it stems from the studio side. Because a lot of people can say it starts in Imagineering, but actually it has to start with the studio in order to get said. Not necessarily, obviously, they have the rights because they own it, but I mean, like, as far as like what is in the public eye in that moment of what to do. And I think with the scramble of what's going on with the studio, people's jobs getting cuts, people transitioning from one job to the next, what are they doing as far as with content, what is popular, what is not, and then by the time it hits into Imagineering, it's like, okay, well, now by the time it hits Imagineering, now something new is coming. So it's like by the time it even transitions down into WDI for them to say, okay, let's even consider doing something, they need to get off this strict line of sticking just with this one blank storyline, and it's unfortunately the newer Star Wars films with Reylo and I'm sorry, like I'm over.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. It's like Reylo to me is like Days of Our Lives. It's like a bad soap opera that just keeps on going and going and going, and it just won't stop. It's
our friend of the channel, Alia, is gonna have your head. Dre's gonna have your head first, and now Alia's gonna have your head. You said something about Reylo.
Everyone, just get in line.
Get in line. Oh man,
I was gonna say too, the popularity of the new series of the new trilogy. I was just thinking about this right now. Let's think about this. When The Force Awakens came out, did it blow up because it was an actual genuinely good movie, or did it blow up because we hadn't had a Star Wars movie of that caliber since the prequels, and now it's this like, oh my god, do Star Wars movie, everybody go watch it? Was it because of that, or was it because Force Awakens was an actually good movie? I think that's a debate.
And I think what attached to that too is the three main stars. When people knew Harrison Ford, Mark Hamill, and of course the late great Carrie Fisher, when they knew those three were reprising their roles from the original, I think people had that nostalgic feeling of like, oh, this is going to be just as good as the original. So by the time everyone got to the theaters, they got to see those characters, but it's like the storyline kind of pivots
wacky.
A little bit. Yeah.
So that's what I'm saying. So Disney made their money just by people buying their tickets and going to go see the movie, but was the movie actually good? And I don't think it was that great.
Yeah, no, Jalen, you bring up a fantastic point, because it was definitely Force Awakens was definitely riding coattails. Like, I think, it was the first big Star Wars movie since the prequels, and it was a continuation of the original trilogy from decades before. So you had all these generations of Star Wars fans like really wanting to see this thing, and that's why it made $2+ billion, I think, in the box office. Because look, I enjoyed The Force Awakens, but it wasn't like the most incredible thing I've ever seen or anything like that. It was kind of retelling of A New Hope. I mean, it really kind of was. Yeah, no, I agree. The sequel trilogy, and we've done videos on this, but the sequel trilogy, while I enjoyed each film, it really was, it was underwhelming for what it compared to what it could have been. It could have been much, much better.
And of course,
go ahead.
I was going to say, and the character of Snoke, they had a golden opportunity to carry out that character and really give him a true background. And in the end, they just kind of made him a little bit of a wuss. And then it turns out that he was a puppet that was being controlled by the original villain. It's like, okay, little bit predictable there. It's like, why couldn't we have this new threat, this new entity that is like, what is Snoke's true driven notion to take over? And it's like, it's Palpatine controlling him. It's like,
right.
And I think also too with Kylo's character, they tried so hard to tie him to Darth Vader because, I mean, technically he is Darth Vader's grandson, but they tried with his whole appearance and the whole voice thing. I just personally feel like they use Kylo's character as like a attention grabber too. When you watch the trailer, it's like, oh, it's baby Darth Vader or whatever the case. So people are automatically intrigued to find out who this character is. And he's Han Solo and Princess Leia's son. Like, oh, let's watch. It was a weird. The whole movie was the story was kind of funky, and then with the whole Emperor and Rise of Skywalker, you built this, you created this whole dynamic and dramatic story in the prequels and the New Hope trilogy, where the Palpatine was like this feared figure, and you made this dramatic scene where he finally killed him, and he's just back. Like, I don't know, it just doesn't seem. I wasn't satisfied with that. Like, oh, Emperor Palpatine's back. Like, they ran out. It's like if they ran out of ideas. Like, there was nothing else to. We're just gonna bring back Big Bad just because we have no other ideas.
And that's what it seems like Disney is doing, like with everything lately. It just seems like they're so out of original ideas, so they're just like relaying back on old content and trying to refresh it. And I'm not even just saying that with Star Wars. I'm saying like that. It just seems like that's the route that the company is going, even with like the live action remakes.
They've really played it safe with Rey, I think. I mean, she's a Palpatine. I think at the end of this movie, she should have went full on Empress Palpatine, like just straight up like Sith Lord, fucking badass. And then Kylo could have got his redemption arc. So now by the end of Rise of Skywalker, you had a swap, right? So you have Empress Palpatine and you have Ben Solo. So that makes you interested in the next sequel trilogy, because now you have Empress Palpatine and Ben Solo, and they're gonna go toe to toe in the next trilogy. But the way they ended it, Ben Solo ends up dying, and Rey becomes a Skywalker. And it's like it's just a lackluster ending. It's boring,
It's very predictable.
Yes.
Yeah, right. Yeah, play it way too safe. Now, George, I'm gonna start with you, because this is actually your idea for this particular next topic. But you're a Florida guy, right? That's why you host our Walt Disney World show here on the channel, Citrus Corner. You guys in Florida used to have a thing called Star Wars weekends. Let's talk about it. Go ahead. I'll let you set the table.
Okay, so being that yesterday actually marked the 34th anniversary of Hollywood Studios, May 1st, 1989 is when the park opened. And as time went on and Disney started having a business relationship with George Lucas and getting Star Tours in the park and what have you, they started to find ways to incorporate more of Star Wars in the parks, but do it in Disney's way, not necessarily the Lucasfilm way. And they created back in, I believe it was 1997, they started the Star Wars weekends. They usually had it Friday, Saturday, Sundays, where they would have basically almost like a big block party bash where they incorporated all the characters from Star Wars. And then as the years went on with the prequels, they added Darth Maul, they added Padme or what have you, and it just became where they had like this stage show where they brought the stormtroopers on, and and they had R2D2, C3PO, and even the Disney characters got in on the fun, and they dressed up as their favorite Star Wars characters. Mickey was Luke Skywalker, Minnie was Leia, Goofy was Vader, Donald a stormtrooper. So it was like this fun kind of quirky way of incorporating Star Wars into Disney, but having a nice play to it, but still respect the franchise. And that's where I actually enjoyed the Star Wars weekends. And that's kind of what I thought I was going to get, but just on a Lucasfilm scale when it came time to Galaxy's Edge. And that's necessarily what made Star Wars weekends end in November of 2015 when they started clearing the way for Galaxy's Edge. So there were some things that I was not too keen on, like when they had the Galactic Party Bash, and you'd see Vader doing his Michael Jackson moonwalk, and you'd see Boba Fett doing his twerking. It's like, okay, that's going a little bit too much there, Right. That's like some of the aspects that I say, kind of leave out. But as an overall notion of what Star Wars weekends was, it added even something to Hollywood studios that you can't get anymore. And it was included in with your park admission. So if you were on one of the days of Star Wars weekends, you got that if you had a park admission ticket.
That's interesting. Now, Jalen, have you seen much? Have you experienced it? Star Wars weekends over there in Florida?
No, I haven't experienced, but I've seen the videos. I think they used to do some of it. If I'm not mistaken, right in front of Mickey and Minnie's, right? They used to have like a huge stage out there.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, correct.
Yeah, so I remember seeing some stuff from it. But I think that's something that we should consider at our parks, because I think we get a fireworks show maybe, and a couple banners and nice lights, and that's about it. Because you can't do none. They don't want none of that to happen in Galaxy's Edge because it's not on their timeline. So
now, just out of curiosity, when you saw those banners, was everything spelled correctly on it?
Yes. I was glad that they were able to spell May the 4th.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the Star Wars weekends is interesting. It's kind of like, for me personally, it's kind of like the opposite problem of like Galaxy's Edge, right? So Galaxy's Edge takes itself too seriously, but I feel like Star Wars weekends doesn't take themselves seriously enough, right? Because like you said, George, they got like the twerking Boba Fett and stuff like that. I think I goofy Darth Vader. Yeah, it takes it a little too far on the kind of campy side for me personally. But somewhere in the middle, I think would be great. Like if you had like this celebration of Star Wars, the franchise, where all the characters were there and they took over the whole park. And, I guess they have Star Wars night, the after hours thing, but I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
But not the same.
But I also wanted to bring up too, this was part of Star Wars weekends, but then also what became incorporated just within Hollywood Studios and Disneyland Park for that matter, and that was the Jedi Training Academy. Oh, yeah. And I have to say, that is something I don't know why Disney didn't keep that and just move it over to Galaxy's Edge, because they capitalized on that like you wouldn't believe. I had my son do it at Disneyland, and he loved it. I mean, it's, you're involving the kids to interact in this like little stage show. I mean, it was perfect. And that's something I don't know why that they got rid of. I mean, if they wanted to get rid of it temporarily until you moved it, but again, that could have been more life put into Galaxy's Edge.
Well, and the thing about the brilliance of the Jedi Training Academy is why they should have kept it now is because a lot of those encounters with the kids would go viral, because you see like these little girls and they would like bow down to Vader and like join him. But it was fantastic. And you would see that stuff on YouTube and people would crack up, but it was cool little, moments like that. It would go viral. And it's like, that's like promoting your park right there, Disney. Like, why would you get rid of that? It was like one of the best things they've done in that park. And they're like, nope, we're getting rid of it. I don't understand it.
And we can say so much about, the elephant in the room, the big fat launch bay building that they have just sitting there, and they use for Disney credit card people to take pictures with Darth Vader. Like, are we serious right now? Like, you have this big Star Wars launch bay signage out, and no one can even go inside. Like, no normal guest can go inside. Like, it doesn't even make sense.
No. Finish. Okay, finish.
I was gonna say, like, and if you're gonna have a Star Wars celebration where everything's gonna be dedicated to Star Wars, they see this big Star Wars launch bay sign, they're gonna want to go inside. So it's like, I don't know, it's just Disney doing Disney things, I guess.
Right? Yeah, exactly. Makes no sense. I agree with you, Jalen. Go ahead, George.
But and then it's over. The same thing with Hollywood Studios. I mean, you could still go in it, but it's like you have Galaxy's Edge and Galaxy's Edge. You have Star Tours over at Echo Lake, and then you have the launch bay over in the animation courtyard. So it's like, that's all I got to say.
It makes no sense. Well, the launch bay is so frustrating. And Jalen, I've had you on before. We've talked at great detail about the launch bay, and it's such a wasted...
I try not to bring it up.
No, I'm glad you do though, because it is the elephant in the room, and it is such an egregious waste of space. It's a massive building that no one can go inside, and it's going to be even more so that way because the top floor now is going to be like a DVC lounge, which again is very limited in scope. It's frustrating. It's absolutely frustrating. And this is a franchise, like Star Wars is a franchise that you can do a bajillion and a half things with it. And you can't figure something out and they do this much. You can't figure something out to put in that launch bay for everybody.
No, just apparently a sitting place for DVC members. And they only get the top part of the building.
The top level. You can't even sniff inside. I mean, my God. And then they had the throwback night not that long ago, and they had the Carousel of Progress picture opportunity where you take pictures with the characters, and they had the little signage over the launch bay, and it's like, I'd very much rather have that than this exhibit that doesn't exist anymore. And I feel like for ticket holders or tourists, when they come to the park, they see Star Tours and Star Wars launch bays. There's nothing there but the Star Wars launch bay. And they see the Star Trader store. You wouldn't think that they would think that that's Star Wars land. Like, oh, is this Star Wars land? Like, you get confused guess.
Absolutely.
And there's like, no, the actual Star Wars land is in the back of the park. So, to walk.
And this is going a little bit off topic, but there's a purpose for it. And it's almost like when Iger announced that Avatar is coming to Disneyland, and the first thing that pops into people's mind is, oh, it's going to be like an exhibit. And it's like, that's really the correlation that you want your guests to think, to say, oh, it's going to be an exhibit, because why? Look what they already have in the parks. It's well, we got a Star Wars exhibit, so we might as well have an Avatar exhibit. It's like, just cut that out. It's like literally and figuratively, like, cut it out, like, get it out, turn it into something much better.
And this is one thing I think Universal kind of has over Disney in a lot of ways, is that Universal, if Comcast Universal owned the Star Wars franchise, they would go, as George says, balls to the wall. Like, they would do every fan servicey thing they could think of in their parks with Star Wars. Every fan servicey thing. I mean, look what they did with Super Nintendo World, right? It's full of everything you ever wanted to do as a Nintendo fan. Everything you wanted to experience as a Nintendo fan is in that land. It's a love letter.
Look what they did.
Harry Potter.
Exactly. Look what they did with the Wizarding World. And that's not even their IP.
Right, exactly. So I think Disney needs to listen a little more and be like, you got to listen to your fans. And it's just like, it's frustrating. I mean, they have to be hearing everything like that, what we want from Galaxy's Edge and what have you. And that's not even mentioning the Starcruiser. I mean, do you want to get into the Star Cruiser? Because we can talk about that.
Please, let's do so.
Let's talk about it, George. What because we've
The
had
jailhouse.
The jail. Well, Jalen, have you seen Andor? Have you seen Andor?
I watched a little bit of it. Yes.
There actually is a prison in that show that looks exactly like the rooms in the Star Cruiser. No joke, man. No joke. It's like almost verbatim. Right, George?
Absolutely. As I said, it was like a cross hybrid between a state prison and IKEA. It's like I don't get it. They had such potential, and like the drive for this thing, that they amped everybody up to say, you know what, if you spend so much money, you get to live a Star Wars adventure, and you get people on this thing, and it's the detail. There's like nothing to it. It's like a shell of a building. The storyline, you get captured by Kylo Ren while you're up in space. Wow, there's a big shocker there. You can go do that for free with your park admission ticket with Rise of the Resistance. It's the dining area looks like a school cafeteria, and it's like I'm just not understanding like what. Like, I had no appeal whatsoever to see it. Like, after the fact that I seen, like, when the content creators from YouTube went on this thing, I'm like watching this and I'm like, I have no drive to do this for free, let alone put out $5,000-$6,000 for this thing.
The issue with this experience is that it's priced like a cruise. Like, I get like that's the concept, that it's a galactic cruise line. And that's a cool concept, but you can't price it like a cruise. Like when you go on a Disney cruise, you actually go somewhere. You go to Cabo, you go to the Bahamas. You're not going anywhere here. Like you're looking at screen windows. Like they're not, so it's like you're going to pay thousands of dollars to be in this kind of like the claustrophobic bunker. It's just out of control. They could price it like a high-end Disney hotel. Like you could price it like the Grand Californian or something. That's fine. But you price like a cruise.
But all that land, and I said it before, and I'll say it again, and I'll continue to keep on saying it. They used precious land that they could have expanded Hollywood Studios. They could have expanded Galaxy's Edge to make it bigger, to make it better. They could have added not even anything to deal with Star Wars. They could have just expanded the park just to expand it. And it's like they used this land for something like this that you have to make special deals for throughout the year just to get people in there, because people can't afford it or they're not appeased by it. It's like, what a waste of time, money, and space.
Yeah, I'd very much rather have a normal Star Wars tower hotel. Like a normal hotel, just a tower with rooms and very good theming, rather than you're selling me a Star Cruiser with cruise prices for a cruise that doesn't move. And
and really, if you think about it, that storyline was supposed to be integrated within Galaxy's Edge itself. That's what it was supposed to be, where you kind of live your Star Wars adventure within the park. And that's where they probably thought, you know what, we could probably make a little bit more of a profit on this and kind of do it as like an inclusive type of experience on this Star Cruiser. And they moved everything that was supposed to go into Galaxy's Edge and put it and shoved it into this little building that's supposed to be a Star Cruiser, and the execution of it is just very lackluster.
Well, and one of the things I personally, and it's different for everybody, right? But when I go on a cruise, when I went on that cruise back in November, the Disney Wonder, I was drawn to the stuff that was like chill, like relaxing. I like to just sit on the balcony and watch the water. It's boring for some people, but for me, that's cool for me. I'm good with that. Watching the fish and everything, that's cool. When you go on the Galactic Starcruiser, it's like they kind of force you into like this role play thing, and that's fine for some people. But like for me personally, like I don't want to do all that. I want to have an option where I can just kick it. The problem is you can't just relax on this thing because there's no real scenery. It's all screen windows. So what are you going to do if you're not playing the role play games? What are you going to do? You're going to stare at the screen window all day?
Exactly. And that's what frustrates me, is like, so my options are play the game with everybody else or go sit in my prison and watch ambient TV. That's literally that ambient TV. Let me watch ambient TV or go play Star Wars games. Like it sounds childish, and I wouldn't mind also if they made it like a separate like experience, like how Universal just had those like the Back to the Future and Jurassic World escape rooms, and they have like the whole little thing. If you
Oh,
would
that'd
have
be
made
cool.
like a Star Wars escape room type of deal with how they have it on the Star Cruiser, I wouldn't mind doing that like once or twice or whatever. But the fact that this is what you're proposing as my vacation, what I'm spending thousands of dollars on top of possible park entry, I don't think it's worth it at all. Nothing about the Star Cruiser uh, is worth it at all. Like, and then the thing is too, when you're on a cruise, because I went on Disney cruise too, I was on the Fantasy, and the fact that like I can just eat whatever I want, whenever I
Mhm.
want, however much I wanted. It was like normal food, American, Italian, whatever. I don't want to be I don't think I'll have appetite for like the strange exotic foods that, they have on this Star Cruiser. Like I'm sure it's normal food, but I don't want nothing that looks like alien food. Like that
It
doesn't
looks like
seem
someone
appetizing.
already digested it.
Yeah.
Right.
There, you're right. It's like normal food, but they put a bunch of food coloring on it, and it looks
Yeah.
unappetizing. Like I don't want to eat a
Yeah.
hamburger with like a blue bun. That
No.
doesn't really look
Yeah.
attract. It's like, oh, okay.
And
So
that
we'll
and that
see.
mind you that those are your only options. I don't think there's anything normal on that ship because you're supposed to be embarked in the Star Wars universe. So you're not gonna get an American cheeseburger, no pickles and with French fries. You're not gonna get that.
Yeah, exactly. Now, George, I'm going to start with you first. What are your predictions for the Star Cruiser? Like, do you think they're going to just kind of reimagine this experience to keep it afloat? No joke. No, I mean, no pun intended. To keep it afloat, or do you think they're just going to outright close this thing because it's obviously not performing? We're hearing that there's all kinds of availability. They're discounting the heck out
Yeah.
of it. Do you think they're going to get rid of this thing, or do you think they're just going to kind of repurpose it?
For how much that was put into this, and I think it would kind of look at bad on Disney's reputation for them to get rid of it like right away, but yet they have to make some sort of profit, otherwise they'll just lose more money than what they already had. I think that they may try a hybrid seasonal transition with the Star Cruiser, so like only have certain dates throughout the year to say, hey, you have this amount of time frame to experience this, and then see how that goes, just to maybe keep it afloat if they wanted to keep the price point to that amount. If they want to have it, if they want to have it all year round, they're going to have to bring some of that cost on. At least they can get people in there that they may say, you know what, at least it's a little bit of affordable. Another thing that Disney has to do is they're going to have to end up eventually changing some of the storyline, because once one person goes on it, are you really going to want to do it again? This is almost like a one lightning shot in a bottle type of experience, because even if I had the the notion to want to experience it, after I do it one time, I'm not going to do it again. So I still think that in time, this is probably going to become something else, maybe a permanent Star Wars themed hotel, and they'll just expand on it because it's already a small building. You can't fit like a whole lot of people if
Yeah.
it's, a regular hotel. Or unfortunately, it may just be taken out and that land repurposed for something completely different.
100%. Now, Jay, we're gonna close it out, but Jalen, your opinions or your predictions on the future of the Star Cruiser. Then we're gonna wrap up our video.
So I personally think that with the lowering of prices and the little knickknacks that they were trying to promote, kind of like what George was saying, and also too, just piggybacking, I think with the ever growing, um, I don't know the word for it, the Star Wars franchise is still growing. They're producing new shows and movies, so eventually, you would think that Disney's gonna start to promote their new films and shows within the parks. So I think it's safe to say that Galaxy's Edge Future looks at another attraction maybe or an expansion. And Starcruiser kind of sets that back for Hollywood studios wise, because like how George was saying, they did utilize a good amount of space that they could have used for any type of other expansion or things of that nature. So I don't personally think it has that much longer. I'd probably say like another. They can't, obviously it's not going to be gone no time soon, but I'd say 10 years from now is when we start thinking, or I say 5 to 10 years when we start thinking like, all right, what's the deal here? Are we going or are we staying?
Yeah, no, I agree, Jalen. It's on its way out. It's on its way out, and it's just a matter of time. So we'll have to see. But we're gonna close up our show today. Jalen, I want to thank you for coming back on, sir, and talking May the 4th and Star Wars with us today. If you could remind everybody at home where they could find you on social media, sir.
I am actively on Twitter right now at Theme Park EXP626, as you can see right here. And I promise to be more active on that. I got to do a better job, but I'll be on there talking to you guys about anything theme park, news, whatever.
Awesome. And I will be linking Jalen's Twitter in the description below. So make sure you smash that and you follow him on Twitter. And maybe one day we'll have a Jalen YouTube channel. That'd be kind of cool.
Yeah,
man.
I've been working on it.
Awesome. And right over here, we got the Family Man 23. George, if you could let everybody at home know where they could find you on social media, sir.
Absolutely. Let me give this another go because I really screwed this up in the intro. So let me see if I could do that for the outro. If you want to find me on my YouTube channel, Disney Family Man 23, you can interact with me on Twitter at Disney George. Please find me on the new podcast, A Walk with Walt. And of course, you'll find me here on my home base at Orange Grove 55 with Citrus Corner with all that sweet, juicy, but sometimes sticky Disney news and info.
You nailed it. And because Vash isn't here, but in his honor, we usually end these with a little drop, right? So let's go ahead and we go full-blown Star Wars right now.
Everything is proceeding as I have foreseen.
There we go. A little Palpatine. You can't go wrong with Palpatine. But everybody at home, comment down below with all your thoughts about May the 4th at the Disney parks, Star Tours, the future of Star Tours, the new destinations, Galactic Starcruiser, Batu, all of it. Comment down below. And as always, may the Force be with you.